The alien marketplace was alive with sound. Voices shouted prices, carts rolled over the stone streets, and the air carried the smell of fruit, metal, and spice. Ships landed in the distance, their engines humming, while merchants pulled travelers by the arm to sell their goods. It was a place where life seemed endless, where thousands of different species mixed together. And yet, in the middle of this noise, a voice rose that carried more pain than any price or bargain. It was the voice of a mother. She fell to her knees on the cold ground, her thin arms wrapped around the small body of her child. The child's skin was pale, its breath shallow, its tiny chest rising and falling with great effort. Beads of sweat ran down its forehead. The sickness had already taken its strength. The mother's voice cracked as she begged, her words tumbling out in desperation. "Please, medicine, my child. He needs medicine." But no one stopped. A trader passed by carrying a tray of glowing fruit. He turned his head, pretending not to hear. A soldier in silver armor walked past with heavy boots, but his eyes looked straight, ahead as if she were invisible. Two alien nobles in robes of deep red slowed only to laugh quietly before walking away. The mother pressed her forehead to the ground, her tears falling into the dust. "Please. He is dying. I will give anything I have. Please help us." Still, the crowd flowed around her like water around a stone. No hand reached out. No voice answered. Her body shook as she tried to stand. She staggered to the nearest merchant stall, clutching her child close. On the wooden counter sat vials of medicine glowing faintly blue inside glass tubes. The cure was right there, just beyond her reach. "Please," she whispered, her lips trembling. "I can pay. Take my coins. Take everything." The merchant looked down at her, his eyes cold. He saw her torn clothes, her scars, and the child barely breathing in her arms. He sneered. "Not for you, not for your kind. Go." She tried to place her few coins on the counter, but he swept them to the ground with his hand. The coins rolled away in the dust. The crowd nearby chuckled at the sight. The mother gasped, her voice breaking. "He is only a child. Please, he has done nothing wrong. Please, give me the medicine." The merchant turned his back and began calling to another customer. She no longer existed. She staggered back, holding her child tighter, her heart hammering. The boy coughed weakly, his eyes half closed. She pressed her lips to his forehead, whispering words from her old language, words of comfort, though her own heart was broken. Her legs gave way, and she sank to the ground again. Around her, footsteps never stopped. The galaxy kept moving, as though her suffering was nothing, as though her child's life was worth less than the dust beneath their feet. Some aliens whispered to each other as they passed. "She is one of the broken ones. They have no honor. Cursed blood. Better if the child dies." The mother heard them all. Each word cut deeper than a knife. But she could not stop. She lifted her voice again, though it was raw and weak. "Please. Someone, anyone. Medicine, I beg you." Her cry rose above the noise for a moment, sharp and filled with despair. A silence fell over the nearest stalls as people glanced her way. For a heartbeat, it seemed as if someone might step forward, but then the silence cracked into laughter. A group of young aliens pointed and mocked her. "Beg louder. Maybe the stars will hear you." Her face burned with shame, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Her child's life depended on it. She crawled forward on her knees, her arms trembling as she lifted her son higher. His small hand dangled weakly, lifeless, as if the sickness was already pulling him away. "Please," she whispered again, her throat dry. "He is all I have." No one answered. The silence of the crowd was louder than their noise. It pressed down on her chest, crushed her spirit, and made her wonder if she and her child would simply die there in the dust, surrounded by thousands, who would not even notice. The child stirred faintly, a soft whimper escaping his lips. The sound tore through her heart like fire. She rocked him gently, whispering through her tears, "Stay with me. Please stay with me. Someone will help. Someone must help." But as she looked around at the crowd, faces turned away, eyes filled, with either disgust or amusement, her hope began to fade. The sickness would not wait. Every moment without the medicine was another step closer to death. And yet not one person moved. Not one person lifted a hand. The galaxy had chosen silence. Her tears blurred her vision as she lowered her head over her child, shielding him from the cold stares of the crowd. Her lips brushed his hair as she whispered, more to herself than, "Anyone else? Why will no one help us? Why?" The market roared with noise, with life, with trade and laughter, and in the middle of it her desperate cry was swallowed whole. But destiny has a strange way of turning at the moment hope seems lost. Somewhere beyond the crowd, footsteps were coming. Steps that did not rush, did not laugh, did not turn away. Someone had heard, and soon everything would change. The marketplace did not stop for her tears. It never did. Ships still landed, traders still shouted, and coins still clinked into greedy hands. The galaxy kept moving forward, but not for her. Not for her child. The alien mother pulled herself up from the dirt, her knees shaking, her voice already hoarse from crying. Her child coughed weakly in her arms, his tiny chest rattling with each breath. She pressed her cheek against his head, whispering words of comfort she did not believe herself. Her heart screamed in silence, but she forced her voice to stay soft. For him. She stumbled toward another stall. This one sold herbs and powders, some healing, some poisonous, depending on how they were used. The alien woman at the counter had sharp eyes and long fingers counting her coins as customers handed them over. The mother tried to speak. "My son, he is sick. Please, give me medicine." The woman looked up, her mouth curling into disgust. She waved her hand as if swatting away an insect. "I don't deal with your kind. Leave." The mother's knees almost buckled, but she forced herself to stay standing. She reached into her pouch, pulling out 2 thin coins, her last. Her hands shook as she held them out. "Please take them. Just 1 vial. He will die without it." The stallkeeper's eyes narrowed. She leaned forward and hissed, "Better he dies. We don't need more of you." Then she turned away, already shouting prices at another customer. The coins slipped from the mother's trembling fingers, falling into the dust. She stared at them for a moment, too weak to even bend down and pick them up. Her child whimpered softly, his voice weak and fading. That sound alone kept her legs moving. She turned to another stall, then another. Every time she begged, the answer was the same: a sneer, a laugh, or silence. Some merchants mocked her openly, others pretended she was not even there. One soldier, standing guard near the gate, muttered as she passed, "She should have left the child to die. It would have been mercy." She felt his words like a blade twisting into her chest, but she kept moving, because stopping meant death. The crowd around her grew louder, almost crueler in its silence. No one stepped forward. No one even paused. To them, she was not a mother. She was not a person. She was only a shadow. A cursed thing that the galaxy had decided was unworthy of help. Her tears ran freely now, but she did not care. Pride was long gone. All that remained was a single thought: save her child. She stumbled, nearly falling, but caught herself on a stone pillar. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The child stirred faintly in her arms, his small eyes opening halfway. He looked at her with the kind of trust that shattered her heart. She forced a smile through her tears, whispering, "It's all right. Stay with me. I will find help." But in her soul, she felt the weight of truth pressing down. She had begged, cried, offered everything she had, and still the galaxy gave her nothing. Every second was precious. The sickness was spreading faster. The child's hands were colder now, his breathing weaker. She rocked him, trying to keep him warm, trying to keep hope alive even as her own slipped away. Somewhere nearby, laughter echoed. A group of young aliens stood together, pointing at her. "Look at her crawl," one said. "Beg louder, maybe the stars will send you medicine." Another tossed a small stone in her direction. It struck the ground near her foot. She flinched, but kept moving, clutching her child closer. The cruel silence was worse than their laughter. The silence of thousands of eyes turning away. The silence of hearts that refused to feel. The silence of an entire galaxy that had decided she did not matter. She reached the edge of the market where the road stretched toward the docks. Her strength was gone. Her feet gave way, and she sank to her knees once more. The child lay limp in her arms, his breaths shallow, his lips pale. She pressed her forehead to his, whispering again and again, "Stay with me. Please stay with me." But no answer came. The marketplace thundered around her. Voices, footsteps, engines, but none of it reached her. She was trapped inside a cage of silence, screaming with no one to hear. Her tears blurred her vision as she looked upward at the towers of the city. For a moment she wondered if this was how it would end. Her child dying in her arms, herself forgotten on the cold ground, with the galaxy never once remembering their names. She closed her eyes, whispering one final plea, not to the merchants, not to the nobles, but to the stars themselves. Please. Someone. And then, quiet footsteps. Not rushing, not laughing, not avoiding. They came closer, slow but certain, different from the rest. The alien mother opened her eyes. Through the blur of her tears, she saw a figure moving toward her. A man, not an alien like the others. His jacket was worn, his boots dusty, his face tired but steady. A human. The marketplace was a sea of movement. Stalls overflowed with goods, merchants shouted for customers, and ships thundered above the city. No one noticed the woman kneeling in the dirt anymore. To the crowd, she was only a shadow, a noise they had already learned to ignore. But then, one figure stopped. The footsteps were not like the others. They were steady, heavy with travel, and carried no hurry. A lone human walked through the crowd. His jacket was patched, his boots worn, and his pack looked as though it had crossed a dozen worlds. He carried no banners, no noble crest, no soldiers at his side. To most eyes he was nothing, just another wanderer passing through. And yet, when his gaze fell upon the alien mother and her dying child, he froze. His brow tightened, his eyes locked on her trembling form. The child limp in her arms, the coins scattered in the dirt. For a moment he stood there silent. The noise of the marketplace blurred, as though the world had narrowed to only that one corner. The mother felt his presence before she saw him. She lifted her head weakly, expecting another cruel laugh, another turned face. Instead, she saw his eyes. They were not filled with mockery, not with disgust, but something else. Something she had not seen in so long that she almost forgot it existed. Compassion. He stepped forward. The crowd noticed at once. Whispers rippled through the marketplace like sparks on dry grass. "What is he doing?" One alien muttered. "He will touch her? Is he mad?" hissed another. "Humans are strange creatures," someone sneered. "They play with fire and call it mercy." The human ignored them. He knelt slowly on one knee, bringing himself to the mother's level. His voice was calm, quiet, carrying no judgment. "Are you all right?" he asked. The words were simple, but they struck her harder than the cruelest insult. No one had asked her that. No one had cared. Tears blurred her vision again. She opened her mouth, but only broken words came. "Medicine. My child. Please." The human looked at the boy. His chest rose weakly, his breath shallow, his lips pale. Without hesitation, the human pulled a flask from his pack and pressed it into her hands. "Here, drink first, then him." Her fingers shook as she held the flask. She hesitated, unused to kindness, but the child whimpered, so she lifted the water to his lips. A few drops fell, and the boy stirred faintly, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment, the mother gasped softly. Even water was a gift greater than gold. She looked at the human, her lips trembling, wanting to thank him, but unable to find the words. The whispers of the crowd grew louder now. Foolish human. He wastes his water. Does he not know she is cursed? Still the human ignored them. He turned back to her. What does he need? He asked, nodding toward the boy. The mother swallowed hard. Her voice was almost gone, but she forced the word out. Medicine. The human nodded once. He stood, turning to the rows of stalls. His eyes scanned the merchants until he spotted the vials glowing faintly blue behind a counter. He walked toward it with purpose. The merchant who had mocked the mother earlier sneered at his approach. You again? He said coldly. This medicine is not for her kind. The human placed his hand on the counter, his eyes hard. I wasn't asking. The crowd gasped at his tone. The merchant's smile faltered. Do you even know the price? I'll pay it, the human replied without hesitation. He reached into his pack and dropped a handful of credits onto the counter. The coins clattered loudly, drawing more eyes. Now give me the medicine. The merchant glanced around nervously. It's not worth it, he whispered. She is already lost. The child will die anyway. The human leaned forward, his voice quiet, but sharp as a blade. Then let him die with a chance, not with your greed. For the first time, the merchant looked away. Slowly, reluctantly, he slid one vial across the counter. The glowing blue liquid shimmered in the glass. The human snatched it up and turned away without another word. The whispers in the market exploded now. He bought medicine for her? This is madness. Humans, they will bring ruin with their mercy. But the human did not hear them. He knelt again before the mother, holding the vial out to her. Give this to him, he said softly. Her hands trembled as she took it. She pressed the glass to her child's lips and a drop of blue liquid slipped into his mouth. At first, nothing happened. The silence was crushing. Then, the child coughed, his small body jerking as he drew in a stronger breath. His eyes fluttered open wider than before, and a faint color returned to his cheeks. The mother gasped, her tears falling freely now. She covered her mouth, whispering thanks in broken words over and over, though she doubted he understood. The crowd stood frozen. They had all turned away. They had all ignored her cries. And yet here, in front of them all, one human had done what none of them dared. The silence of cruelty had been broken, and the marketplace would never forget it. The vial was small, no larger than the human's hand, but in that moment it carried more weight than all the ships in the sky. The alien mother held it with trembling fingers, afraid it might slip away, afraid it was all just a dream. Her child coughed again, this time stronger, a thin breath rushing into his lungs. His tiny hand twitched against her chest, weak but alive. Tears streamed down her face as she rocked him gently. Her lips moved, whispering words of thanks in a language the human could not understand. But he understood enough. He saw it in her eyes, the look of someone who had been pulled back from the edge of despair. The crowd, however, did not share her gratitude. The market buzzed with whispers, mutters, and angry hisses. Merchants leaned over their stalls. Nobles covered their mouths with silk sleeves, and soldiers frowned with unease. What had just happened broke more than silence. It broke the order of things. He bought medicine for her? One voice spat. A human dares shame us all, another growled. This will not be forgotten. The alien mother heard them, but she no longer cared. All that mattered was the sound of her child breathing, the faint rise and fall of his chest, the color returning to his skin. She kissed his forehead, her tears falling onto his cheeks. For the first time in many nights, she allowed herself to believe he might live. The human did not step back. He stayed kneeling, watching the child carefully. His voice was calm, low, steady. He will need rest. Keep him warm. The medicine will help, but he must fight. The mother nodded, her voice trembling. Thank you. Thank you. But the crowd was not satisfied with silence. The market erupted in argument. Some shouted that the human was foolish, others that he had cursed them all. A merchant slammed his fist on his counter. Do you not understand? Her people are fallen. To give them medicine is to waste it. The human finally stood, his eyes narrowing. His voice carried louder now, cutting through the noise. A child's life is never a waste. The words hit the crowd like thunder. Some froze, some scoffed, but all of them heard. A group of nobles stepped forward, their jeweled robes shimmering in the sunlight. One of them sneered. Human, you think yourself noble? You think saving her makes you greater than us? You insult our traditions, our laws. That medicine was not meant for her. The human's jaw tightened. He looked at them with steady eyes and spoke without fear. If your laws demand a child must die, then your laws are worth nothing. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Even the soldiers shifted uneasily. No one spoke to nobles like that. No one challenged their authority so openly. But the human was not finished. He pointed to the child in the mother's arms. Look at him. Tell me he does not deserve to live. Tell me you are proud to let him die while you stand here with full bellies and fat purses. The nobles said nothing. Their mouths twisted in anger, but no words came. The crowd fell into a heavy silence, not from kindness, but from shame. The alien mother stared at the human in disbelief. No one had ever spoken for her before. No one had ever raised their voice against the galaxy's cruelty in her defense. Her chest ached with emotion, her tears falling faster, as she whispered again and again, why? Why do you help us? The human turned his gaze back to her. His voice softened, though it carried enough for others to hear. Because no one else would, and no one should be left to cry alone. The marketplace was still now. No laughter, no sneers. Only silence heavy with unease. The image was burned into every eye. The broken mother with her child alive in her arms and the human who had chosen to defy the galaxy for her sake. But under that silence, anger boiled. The nobles would not forget this insult. The merchants would not forget this defiance. Even the soldiers felt their pride wounded. One act of mercy had shaken their order. The alien mother knew this was not the end. Danger would follow them both. Yet as she looked down at her child, his breath stronger, his face less pale, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. And she knew, whatever came next, this human had given her more than medicine. He had given her a chance. He had given her life. The market had turned its back on her. The galaxy had closed its eyes. But one man had dared to step forward, and nothing would ever be the same again. The air of the marketplace hung thick, heavier than the smoke from the ships that passed overhead. No one moved at first. No one dared. The image of the human standing beside the alien mother had frozen them all, like a blade of light splitting through their shadows. But silence could not last. The first sound came from the merchants. One slammed his hands on his counter, shaking the jars of glowing medicine. "This is madness," he shouted. "Humans think they can buy honor with credits. But she has no honor to save." His words spread like fire, igniting others. Nobles in their jeweled robes lifted their voices next. "This insult will not be forgotten," one cried. "To lift a broken mother above her station is to spit on the law itself." Another hissed, "If humans believe they can change our order, they will bring war to themselves." The crowd stirred, voices clashing with one another. Some joined in the anger, pointing and spitting, calling the mother cursed, the human a fool. Others fell into uneasy silence, shifting their feet, their eyes uncertain. And a few, only a few, looked at the human with quiet respect, as if wondering what kind of courage it took to do what he had done. The alien mother clutched her child tighter against her chest, fear crawling back into her heart. She knew these voices. She had lived under them all her life. Mockery, disgust, threats. It was all familiar. Only this time she was not alone. The child coughed again, but it was different now. Stronger. His small eyes fluttered open, and for the first time, in days, he met his mother's gaze. A weak but real breath left his lips, filling her with tears. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "You will live. You will live." The human stood tall beside her, his face calm though the storm around him grew louder. He did not raise his fists. He did not shout. His silence itself was defiance. A group of soldiers finally stepped forward, their armor clinking, their eyes sharp. The leader's voice carried like steel. "Human, you cross a line. To give aid to one who is cursed is to insult this world's laws. Do you claim her as your charge? Do you accept her as yours?" The question cut through the market. All waited for his answer. The human's jaw tightened, but his eyes did not waver. He looked at the mother, then at the child, then back at the soldiers. His voice was steady when he spoke. "Yes." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some shouted, in rage, others muttered in disbelief. To claim her was more than giving food, more than offering water. It was protection. It was responsibility. It was binding his honor to hers. The soldiers stiffened, their hands tightening around their weapons. For a moment it seemed they would seize him, drag him away for daring to defy tradition. But something in his gaze stopped them. It was not the glare of a desperate man. It was the steady fire of someone who would not break. The leader finally looked away, muttering under his breath. The soldiers stepped back, not in respect but in hesitation. They did not want to test what stood behind those human eyes. The nobles hissed with anger, but they too stayed where they were. For all their wealth, for all their power, none of them dared step forward against him in that moment, and so the market stood divided. Half furious, half afraid, and a few silently wondering if perhaps, just perhaps, the human was right. The alien mother, still trembling, turned to him. Her lips moved, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Why? Why do you risk so much for us?" The human bent slightly, his voice soft enough for her alone. "Because no one else would." Her tears fell freely at those words. For so long she had begged the stars for help, for mercy, for one hand to reach out, and now at last it had come. Not from her own kind, not from the nobles or the merchants or the soldiers, but from a stranger, a human. The market would never forget this. Every whisper, every gasp, every cry of outrage would carry the story, further than the stalls and streets. By nightfall it would spread to the taverns. By morning it would reach the governors. And soon it would echo across star systems. They would twist the story, of course. Some would call him reckless. Others would call him a threat. Many would say he insulted tradition. But beneath all their lies, the truth would remain. One human had saved a child when the galaxy turned away, and that truth was dangerous. Because if one act of mercy could shake a market, what might happen if more humans chose the same path? The Plea crowd did not know it yet, but they had witnessed the start of something far greater than a simple act of kindness. They had witnessed the spark of change. The alien mother, holding her child close, whispered one last time, "Thank you." The human nodded once, his gaze steady on the crowd as if daring anyone to try and take back what had been given. And so the market stood still, the air heavy with fear, anger, and something new. Something none of them wanted to name, but all of them felt. Hope. The marketplace did not return to normal that day. The shouting of merchants lost its strength, the laughter of nobles fell quiet, and even the soldiers stood uneasy at their posts. Something had been broken in the air. Something invisible but powerful. The alien mother sat on the ground, her arms wrapped tightly around her child. For the first time in what felt like forever, his breathing was steady. His color was returning, faint but clear. Every sound he made now was proof that life still clung to him. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering softly, "You will live, little one, you will live." The human stood nearby, silent but watchful. He had not raised his voice after that final declaration. He did not need to. His presence alone was enough to remind the crowd of what had happened. They had all walked past. They had all refused her. Yet one man had stepped forward and changed everything. Whispers spread quickly through the streets. News carried faster than any ship. By evening, taverns were buzzing with the tale of the human who had defied nobles, merchants, and soldiers for the sake of a dying child. By night, the story spread beyond the city, carried by traders who had witnessed it with their own eyes. And by morning, the story reached worlds far beyond this one. But for the mother, none of that mattered yet. What mattered was the warmth in her arms, the weak but steady heartbeat against her chest. What mattered was that her son had a chance to live. She looked up at the human, her eyes red from tears. "I have no words," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you do this for us?" The human's gaze softened. He crouched down again, lowering himself so she could see his eyes clearly. "Because no one else did," he said simply. "And no one should be left to suffer alone." Her lips trembled, tears falling once more. These words would stay with her forever. They were not grand, not poetic, but they carried more weight than all the speeches she had ever heard in her life. The crowd, though quieter now, was not done. Anger still burned in some hearts. Nobles left with faces tight with rage. Merchants muttered about lost honor and cursed traditions. Soldiers exchanged dark looks, knowing their leaders would not forget this insult. The human had not only saved a child, he had struck against the pride of an entire world, but there were others in the crowd who walked away silently, their minds troubled. Mothers who carried their own children thought of what they had seen. Fathers who had turned their faces away wondered if they had been wrong. Even among the merchants, one or two glanced at their stalls with guilt burning in their eyes. The seed had been planted. The alien mother rose slowly to her feet, her child resting against her shoulder. She swayed, still weak, but she was not alone now. The human stepped beside her, steady as stone. The crowd parted as they walked, not from respect, but from fear and unease. Still, the way was open. For the first time in countless days, she was not trapped in silence. That night, she sat in a small shelter the human found for them. Nothing grand, but safe and warm. The child slept beside her, breathing stronger now, his small chest rising and falling with life. She sat in the dim light, staring at him, hardly believing he was still there. She whispered softly, her voice carrying more strength than before. "You will grow. You will live. You will know kindness because of him." The human sat near the door, quiet and watchful. He did not ask for thanks, nor did he seek praise. For him, it had never been about glory. It was about what was right, and yet his simple choice carried more weight than he knew. Across the stars, the story of one human's act spread like fire. Some called it foolish, some called it dangerous, some called it the beginning of rebellion against the laws of silence. But no one ignored it. The galaxy had taken notice, and deep in the hearts of those who heard the tale, something stirred. A question they could not silence. If one human could do this, what else might they do? The alien mother knew the answer. She had seen it with her own eyes. When the galaxy turned its back, when silence swallowed the cries of the weak, when tradition demanded cruelty, humanity stepped forward. She held her child close, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time, they were not tears of despair, but tears of hope. And in that quiet shelter under a sky filled with stars, a new beginning was written. Not just for her and her son, but for a galaxy that had been forced to witness what one human could change.